Well, good morning, Rod. It's great to see you. Difficult times, I appreciate that. We've got some questions here from the public, and some I know have come into your office as well. Particularly people who are interested in the style of policing and the approach to the lockdown you're taking in Gloucestershire as our Chief Constable, and what instructions you're giving to your officers, because we know there's many of them out there. What are the sort of broad instructions to your staff and your officers?
Thank you. Good morning, Martin. Yes, so we've started to try and understand the public health guidance in the first instance and work to the spirit of that. We know that it went on to become regulations and law, but in terms of the tone and the style that we've tried to set from the beginning of our response to the Covid-19 epidemic is one of policing by consent. We know that we need to maintain a strong and healthy and respected relationship with the public when this is over, and we don't want anything that we do now, our behaviours or our tone or attitude, to affect a good recovery, and if not, ideally an enhanced relationship with the public at the end of this. So the instruction to my colleagues is to be approachable, to apply the 4 E's. That is a fundamental part of that guidance, to initially engage with a member of the public or a group, to explain in case they don't understand what's required of them, and to encourage them to comply with it. And I have to say the vast majority of our encounters with the public have been positive. The public have been supportive. There's been a very mature and responsible approach by many members of the county, which I think we should be collectively proud of.
That's what I hear too. I think we must recognise as a public, and I count myself as a member of the public like you do, we've never dealt with anything like this before. The police have never been in a position where they've had to tell people not to be here, not to be there, apart from in public order situations. So I think the public kind of get there. I think you'll be aware that some people perhaps aren't complying as they should do. What's the message to those people who you feel aren't complying? And have you seen many instances of that in the county?
So it's a bit of a broad spectrum, really. As I said, the majority of people are very compliant, and they are very healthy engagements where there's lots of thanks between the officers and the public, and it's a very positive position. As time has passed, that guidance has moved towards regulations, and the regulations have then turned into aspects of the law. And our approach has been, since that adaptation, is to enforce the law where we need to, but police the guidance. And I've talked about how we're trying to police the guidance with that balance between common sense and legitimacy, with occasional enforcement if we have to. And there's no doubt that there is, there have been examples of people who have flouted the law and the regulations, and there have also been significant breaches. And so what we've seen now is a collection of tactics and methodologies. So most of it is just encouragement. There are a category of people who have been fined, and we saw that over this weekend when the fines aspect of the legislation came into being, and we quickly scrambled to make sure that we had our fine system in place so that we could in effect report people for summons. It doesn't criminalise them, but it gives the officer an additional discretion to be able to use fines for people that have disregarded it repeatedly, or they get a real sense they're not going to comply with their reasonable instruction. So an example of that, Martin, would be over the weekend. You'll know that we were out in force on the motorways and the arterial routes coming in and out of the county. That was a genuine attempt to try to prevent unnecessary movement. We stopped over 200 vehicles last weekend, and the majority were very responsive. The drivers. There were a few that the officers felt that they were in no way justifying their journey. 300-mile trip to go and buy a car in Bristol from Manchester isn't a necessary journey. The officer felt that those individuals in the car, 3 men, weren't going to turn around at the next junction and go back from where they came, and so they were issued with a fine. And we've also had at the extreme end people who are flouting the law and the regulations, and we've arrested them, interviewed them and charged them, and that's primarily when they've been using the virus as a weapon, and we have some examples of that as well. Rare, but we will enforce the law if we have to, and we have done.